Hi, it's Alaska Granny. Is it a good idea to be a prepper? Some people think that prepping is extreme, that it's unnecessary, and that preppers are even dangerous people. I like to take the responsible approach towards prepping, that it ensures my safety and the well-being of myself and my family. That should be goals that we all have. We want to make sure that we're having the best, safest, most secure life possible, and that's why we're preppers. Disasters happen unexpectedly. Have you ever been through a natural disaster, a hurricane, a tornado, or even an earthquake? There's zero warning for an earthquake. You can have several days warning, maybe only minutes for a tornado, and it can absolutely tear your life apart. And so we need to be prepared mentally that we might have to face those scary events. We also know that there's social unrest. Just look at what's going on in some of the cities. There are protests over all kinds of things. And with the election rhetoric ramping up again, who knows what it's going to be like. We know there's political instability, not just in our country. All you have to do is look what's happening at the southern border to know that there is social injustice, political unrest, economic hardship happening all over the world. Combine that with just the emergency that could happen with your own family. Have you ever run out of money before you've run out of month? Have you ever worried about losing your job? What about if someone became suddenly sick or you had an unexpected bill? Those can all lead to extreme immediate hardships on your family, which if you prepare a little bit ahead of time and you have some things, then you aren't going to have to suffer the total negative consequences. You'll be able to pull your life together and get going a little bit. You can start small with prepping. Just do the basics. Have some food, simple, easy to open and eat food on hand, and some water. How hard is it to have a few granola bars or a jar of peanut butter? If you even have a can of soup or a can of beef stew, you can have a meal on the table, and those don't require any cooking. If you could heat them up, that would be nice, but you don't have to still be able to have something to eat. So even if the power went out, you could open up some canned food and you could eat it. You may not enjoy it thoroughly, but you could certainly be fed. Then think about ways that you can combine foods. You can find rice that's already prepared in the package so it doesn't require any cooking. You could open a can of meat, have a side of canned vegetables, and you can have a meal on the table that can get your family going again. Think about foods that need very little cooking. How about instant mashed potatoes? You could combine that with a can of meat and some vegetables. What about a package of noodles or rice mix? You could prepare that and do the same thing. Stir in some meat, add a side of vegetables, and you have a meal that didn't require very much cooking. You could pick up a box of pasta, a jar or a can of sauce, and you can have a big meal for yourself for many days or for your family. So it doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. None of these foods are expensive. You could pick up even one package every time you went to the store. One package of food. Buy some granola bars, buy a box of cereal, get a box of crackers, add a can of soup, Chef Boyardee. There are so many different ways that you could add just one or two things every time you go to the store, and over time you're going to have a variety. These are the foods that can keep you fed on a short-term basis. Then it's good to think about longer lasting foods. Maybe you even want to get the longest lasting foods like some beans and rice. That's not a good place to start prepping though, because if say you come home and the power is off and all you have is a bucket of beans and a bucket of rice, you're going to have a hard time figuring out how to prepare those. But if you can open a can of baked beans or chili beans and even a package of already prepared rice, you can still have beans and rice if that's what you desire, but it doesn't have to be. You can choose the foods that you like. Are these foods you want to eat every single day? Probably not, but would you be willing to eat them if you didn't have anything else? If times were hard, your budget was short, wouldn't you be happy to go to your pantry and find even one can of beef-a-roni? I know that I would. It's not my first choice, so I would rather choose something that I'd rather have. But the point is, get something so that you have something that you could make a meal out of if you needed to. Prepping doesn't have to be about SHTF, nuclear war, or the end of the world as we know it. It can just be an emergency for our own family. Maybe you've had a winter storm and you can't get the car out of the driveway. Then you don't have to worry about going to the store. You have something to prepare. What if you run out of money before you run out of month? You don't have to worry that I can't even drive through McDonald's and I don't have anything to eat, because you'll have a few things at home that you can prepare a meal and you can get through it until you get paid again. Prepping means I can take care of myself. If a disaster strikes, I have some food, I have some water, and then it's a great idea after that to pick up some first aid supplies, some health supplies, some of the extra items that you would want for cleaning. If you have something on your shopping list that you need, buy one to use and one to store in your stockpile. And if you do that a little at a time, then pretty soon you're going to have so many things. It won't be a matter of, oh no, who used the last square of toilet paper, because you're going to have a few extra rolls. You don't need to worry if you've squeezed out the very last of the toothpaste, because there's another tube of toothpaste on your shelf and you can go and get it and keep your family running smoothly. That's why I'm a prepper. I want every day to be the best it can be. I don't like dealing with crisis and panic and just the stress of not knowing what I'm going to do. Am I safe? Am I cared for? I can be if I'm a prepper and I do those things for myself. Prepping also allows you to save money, because the prices we're buying food today, the inflation is skyrocketing, and so the foods that you're buying are probably never going to be cheaper in the future. So if you buy 2 cans of something and you put one away, then the next time when you need to replace something, it's probably going to be higher, but you will have already that reserve can that was bought at a less expensive price. You can always save more money if you can use coupons, shop on sale, but there's only so much money that you can cut out of your budget. Sometimes we need to figure out how to increase our income so that we can have more money. And so there are a lot of complications just in budgeting through our regular life. But if you can try to cut back, get out of debt, add a few extra supplies, you're going to have a lot more peace in your life. And then the mental well-being that you're taking care of yourself and your family can really be an added benefit to your life. Some people complain, why would you want to be a prepper? It takes time, it takes effort, it takes money. But if you think about it, what's the most important thing you should want to put your effort into? Isn't it taking care of your family the best that you can? It doesn't have to be overwhelming. You just need to make it a priority that I want to have things for my family to keep everything running smoothly. And it doesn't require a lot of money, because you can pick up a thing or two at a time. While you're stockpiling things and thinking about it, it does take time, because you need to organize your supplies, and then you need to learn how to use the things that you have. But as you journey through prepping, and maybe you decide if the power goes out, I want to get an emergency stove, then you're gaining knowledge because you're learning how to use those new items. So that makes you more capable of facing challenges in the future, because you know how to do more things than you know how to approach quizzically. What can I do to make this situation better? It helps you to problem solve and have more confidence. Prepping minimizes the effects of disasters. It gives you more control over your situation so that you don't have a big emergency and you don't know what to do. You've thought about it, you've made a plan, and then you're able to implement your plan and veer off and make new plans, side A, side B if you need to. And remember, there isn't always an A or a B. Sometimes there's a C. So if you are thinking you can't overcome a problem, try to think it's not this or this, and look somewhere in the middle or somewhere on the outskirts of your 2 ideas and see if you can't find another solution that helps you solve your problem. I think prepping helps you develop that creativity, that imagination, that problem-solving part of your brain so that you can face all kinds of creative situations. The reason I'm a prepper is I want my days to be as smooth as possible. I also want to have the confidence to know that no matter what the future brings, good and bad, it happens to everyone, that I'll be able to face those things. I don't necessarily want to face hardship, but everybody has those things in their life. And if we prepare ahead of time, We think about what could happen. And for me, my faith is a very important part of prepping, that I know that I have someone to lean on, even if it's not a person in my home. I have my faith that I have someone watching over me and helping to guide me. Does that mean I'll never experience hardship or challenges? No, but it means that I can figure out how to get through it to the best of my ability and know that things will be better on the other side. Leave it in the comments below. Why do you think prepping is a good idea? What are some challenges you've overcome? And do you have tips and tricks to share with us so that we can all learn to be better prepared going forward? I hope you like my video. Share it with someone else you think might enjoy it. Please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel.